So after being able to watch the tape, I think it was evident for us to, I think the explosives, when you look at this game, they had several explosives early on and then throughout the game. And for us, trying to be a little bit more efficient in the red zone, I thought we possessed the ball. Nothing that was real different from what I felt yesterday, but I think that for us, it's going to be good for us and important for us to make sure that we understand the significance of being able to respond from adversity and reflect how the game went and where we can get better. But in the end, again, I give a lot of credit to Coach McVay and that team. That's a good football team, and we definitely need to play better, and that starts with me coaching better.
Why the explosives? Have you figured that out?
Yeah, I mean, there's some things as we look into it, whether, it was a good play by them or a misplay by us. So, but sometimes explosives happen, but I think yesterday it was probably too many, and some of them were, short deals there where there's, 3 or 4 plays and then it happens. I did like how early on in the game in the first half, how we got the 2 red zone stop. We had that first and goal. The one red zone stop that was first and goal at the 2. We were able to hold them to a field goal. So that was a bright spot for our defense. And then to be able to come out, I thought it was big in the third quarter. For them to get that touchdown early on, that big touchdown, that big explosive. For us to respond to that with a touchdown, and then it just kind of went back and forth. They had 3 possessions in the 3 real possessions in the third and fourth quarter, and they had 3 touchdowns.
How frustrating is it to see Cup kind of get behind? There's like 13 guys. I think they were 13 yards behind him.
Yeah, that's probably what's most frustrating, and our guys know that when they see it on the tape. Those are the type of throws that Matthew Stafford is hard enough to play against, and when you have somebody that wide open, that's what you don't want. So we got to make sure that we communicate as to the whys, why that happened. But for sure, I mean, those are the ones that we got to eliminate.
There was such a big buildup for Sean and his impact on this defense. It was, frankly, kind of a letdown for people to see, not just that the defense gave up 34 points, but the way they did. Missed assignments, apparently, missed tackles. It was just, I guess, disappointing. And I'm curious, was that just kind of a rookie game for a coordinator, or what happened on those big plays?
There's probably a lot that goes into it, and that's something that I have a lot of faith in Sean and our players in understanding that you go up against a potent offense and a pretty good team like the Rams. You better know what you're doing on every single play. And Sean's, we got together this morning as a staff, and we watched the film and went through different scenarios of the game. And there's some calls when you look through it, just like us as play callers, as everybody. There's some that you want back and that you put on yourself, and then there's others too where you're like, what, this guy could have made a play here or there. And then there's some plays where, like that 4th and 1 that they had a 4th and 1, the bootleg to the right. Matthew made a great throw. It was a great catch. So there's sometimes they're just going to make plays. But overall, I'd say the biggest theme for us would be no panic and just understand that, hey, this was Sean's first game calling, and this was our first game of 2021, and we understand that that's not good enough. We know we want to be better. We want to focus on any of the positives that there were. And then, that's why I think we all believe in one another, and now we get another chance this weekend.
The play where both Gibson and Eddie Jackson failed to touch Jefferson on the ground. I know you call that like a learning lesson, but to a lot of people that's an inexcusable mistake that anybody in high school knows an NFL player instinctively should do. And I guess the question is, that seems like a systemic or just an issue from the top that maybe what he's teaching they're not quite getting. So what kind of a problem is that to you when you see something like that?
I know everybody has their own opinions, and I respect that. I wouldn't agree with that in regards to starting with Sean or I think that's a learning experience, like I said yesterday, to where when that happens, they both tried to nonchalantly tag him. You know what I mean? So it was you got to do it more aggressively, and you got to make sure that if anything, you got to hit him. You know what I mean? So don't put any gray in it to where when he gets back up and runs that you didn't touch him. That's probably the biggest thing. And those guys, I'll guarantee you that entire defense will learn from that. And our offensive players will learn from that too. If you're not touched, stand up and run and turn it into a touchdown. So I know that Sean is teaching those guys the right thing to do, and I know that those guys will definitely learn from it.
You might have answered this when you said, don't panic at this point, but as far as the defense is concerned, do you guys have to consider any personnel changes, since some of this is carryover from last year?
Well, we always look at everything each week. We just want, every opponent that you face for different reasons is different schematically on how you look at that. So sometimes you might go into a game, if it's on defense, and you might want to play bigger personnel, right? You might want to play smaller people. So that's something that we'll look at beginning of the week. And then we also are going to evaluate all these players. We need to make sure that everybody that's out there playing in all three phases is doing their job, and we're all being evaluated each day. So we'll do that. And again, you guys have heard me say this before, and I truly believe this, but it's really not an effort thing, but we do need to get it going, right? We need to get that. I think the biggest thing is really just get that energy and that swag back, and they'll do that. I have a lot of belief in our guys.
Matt, what was the? They're still trying to get their arms around the 4th and 15 call. I know you said you liked the play call. Did you, in the moment, have the opportunity to evaluate the game situation, the difference in a 10-point game versus a 13-point game, all the stuff that comes with it, the odds against 4th and 15? And would you approach that situation differently? I'm not saying would you change the call, but the whole process, if it comes up again.
So I think that's one of those situations where you could look at both sides of it, and some of that hub goes into the game flow and how it's going. At that point in time, I just felt like for us to be able to be more aggressive and get that first down and try to go in there and get a touchdown and make it closer, with it being where it was in the fourth quarter, with us needing 2 scores after you get a field goal, it's still 10 points. And the way the game was going for us on the other side was probably more of leaning that way. If the game was a different situation and it wasn't as high scoring, it was in, 10 or 15 points by the opponent, then maybe the field goal, I would have went that route. I definitely have confidence in Cairo to make that field goal, but that's just kind of where I was at that moment.
And honestly, I'm just trying to get inside your head a little bit.
Yeah.
In looking at it, were you comfortable? Did you spend more time on evaluating the decision or on getting the right play call?
At that moment?
Yeah.
No, at that moment, you're doing both. I mean, you got to always try to stay one step ahead. So going into it, depending on the result of the third down play, what you're going to do. So if a third down play results into a fourth down and whatever, that case being 15, do you have a play that you like, and what is the play? And again, that play there, I know where the DB made the break on Mooney was a yard or two in front of the sticks. And that's all stuff that we talked through too, with the way that he got rerouted and how that played out. But I just think that's something where when you look back, those are situations that you say, would you have done this or that differently? And I think for that moment, the way the game was going, I felt comfortable with both.
Everyone's kind of looking at Dalton's throw chart today, his completions, and the fact that he didn't get anything, 20 yards or whatever. Is that? Watching the tape again, is that a factor with the defense is doing, or the fact that he's got that quick release, so when he's under pressure, he can get it out quick? What did you see from that?
Probably the biggest thing with that was, some of the things that they do defensively, and then that guy that they got over on the other side of the ball, just a little bit. He can do that, and he did it there towards the end of the game. But that doesn't mean that you can't still get explosives. We understand that. And I think that's where we want to make sure that we are stretching the field vertically, and we weren't able to get to that as much. And we kind of knew going into it was going to be one of those types of games. So, that's just one of those deals where we want to, moving forward, try to do everything we can to keep defenses honest going downfield. But nothing to do with Andy as much as it was more the scheme.
Use Justin a little more? I mean, you're using him, obviously you're sprinkling him in there, but maybe use him a little more for those kinds
I don't know. We'll see. I think he did a good job when he was in there.
I know you're confident in coach design your defensive players as well. Last week I kind of asked you about complementary football and factoring the defense in some of those fourth down decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously yesterday you decided to go for 4 and came empty on all 4.
Yeah.
Is that any way indicative of how you feel about the defense in terms of confidence with them? Like, we need to continue to put points on the board because maybe they can't keep these other guys out of the end zone? You know
what? Today, this answer won't sound good because we were 0 for 4, but it actually has to do the flip. It's the confidence I had in our offense. So that's kind of why, 0 for 4 isn't what we want. But we knew going into it, some of those plays that we had, we felt good with, and we just didn't convert on them. And that's okay. That's a part of how this thing goes. But it really was more of that. And I think early on with some of those fourth downs was just trying to get in there and get some points on. Because you do know that you're going to have to score touchdowns against this offense. They're a pretty good offense.
I guess even if you think you have a good play call or you feel pretty good about the offense, does there ever become a point where you say, if my defense is going to be my stronger unit, even if I think I can pick it up, I'll do what's best for them instead?
But I don't know that about that, with the stronger unit. Like, that's for us. Like, we want all three phases to be as strong as each other. And I think that's where probably over the years we'd all agree that our defense has carried us for a lot. And now what we want to do is we want to get that offense back up and be in that too. We want to be able to carry. So if there is a game where you got to score 30 points, you can do that, And so we want to hold teams to under 15 and score a heck of a lot more than 15. If you do that, we'll be okay, So I think that's probably more of it. And every game might be a little different based on the weather or where you're at. But we really do have confidence, and we like where our offense is at. We feel like we grew yesterday a little bit. We didn't get the win. We know there's a lot more improvement ahead of us. But going for it on fourth down like we did in some of those areas, we were okay with.
There were several times when you, especially those 2 touchdown drives, David Montgomery, the running game was
Yeah.
the hallmark, who's the workhorse. He got over the century mark, but still was limited in the carries. What did the Rams show you that made you abandon him a few times in terms of the run game? And, what was the decision behind it?
I don't think we abandoned the run game with him at all yesterday. I thought we did a good job of giving him opportunities. He ran hard. There were some hard runs in there. And then so for us, it actually kind of goes back to that number we talked about, right? When you're winning, you get into that fourth quarter, you get those extra 4 or 5 carries. When you're losing, you're in 2 minutes, you lose those carries. So he was at, 16 carries? So we were behind in the fourth, and we turned into more of a 2-minute team than a 4-minute team. So that's probably where some of those carries were lost.
Did he surprise you at all with his production? He talked about
No. Who, David?
Yeah.
No. He came out, and he's had a great training camp. I thought this past week in practice, he looked really fast. He looked quick. And it didn't shock me at all by that 41-yard run to start the game. That was a strong run. That touchdown run that he had was special now. To break a tackle from Aaron Donald and another D tackle and be able to, get in there and fight for that extra yard, that shows who he is. So I'm proud of him for that.
On the
What
pick
went
that
into
Andy threw.
making Duke Shelley inactive in this?
Say that again?
What went into the decision, the philosophy of Duke Shelley being inactive?
Yeah, some of that is, the defensive side of where they want to go in regards to the nickel position, and then you have some special teams too. So every week it's a little bit different. Duke's had a great training camp, and we feel good with him. So, we'll see where that goes. But a lot of that sometimes is just numbers.
On the pick that Andy threw, I know it's deflected, but I've watched it like 10, 15 times. I believe he said he was throwing it to Darnell.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like if Young doesn't tip that ball, it's going 5 yards behind Darnell and 5 yards in front of the other receiver. So was there a missed read or opportunity?
Yeah, well, they were working through a route combo there, and for them, once that ball got tipped, I think it made it look a little bit worse than what it was supposed to be. But there's an option there that they can do with the leverage that they get from the defender. So that part was a little bit off, but the decision for him to go there, he just thought he could make it and get it to Darnell, and unfortunately wasn't able to. And the kid tipped it, and then the other guy made a great play on the ball.
Matt, I know this is just one game. It's just the beginning and the start. But to Bears fans, every game is telltale.
Yep.
So after seeing Andy Dalton live, I think what Bears fans want to know is, what does Dalton give you that at this point Justin Fields does not?
Well, that's a good question. I understand it. But when you look back and you say, and after you're able to watch the tape and see where you're at, you know that, we talked about, and I brought it up in regards to producing and scoring touchdowns and winning. And so we're always evaluating that. But I thought that Andy did a pretty good job yesterday of being able to, get the ball out to guys where he needed to in certain situations. You look back, and the biggest error that he had was that interception to start the game. And sometimes those can be big ones because that's a momentum deal right on third down. So, without getting into the comparisons too much, I just think that right now when we're evaluating Andy, that I thought he did a good job of being able to put us in good situations, and then using Justin when we did. Justin did well too.
Matt, when you Chambers, Montgomery.
No updates today. No, they're actually working through all that, so once we get them through that, we'll know more, but nothing today.
Matt, when you look at Justin Fields and evaluate his game, do you have confidence that maybe he could handle a little bit more, not just going in for one play and coming back out? Could he get a series?
I don't know. I think there's some of that you get into as well is getting guys in and out of rhythms too with how that works. And you could say, well, would that get them into a little bit more of a rhythm? Maybe. But some of that is strategic too, which obviously I'm not going to get into here with what we would do. But I do say this, working off of what we went with yesterday and how he did, I thought he did a good job. And I said that last night in the press conference that, his very first play, throwing that completion there it was a little bit inside, but it was a good decision for him. And I like that. And that's a big moment. So he's used to those moments, and he's just got to keep doing his thing and understanding where we're at. And he had a great week of practice last week, albeit on the second team. He had, the look team. He had a really good week, and he got better. I mean, so I just want him to keep doing that and understanding where we're at.
I know you can't go into detail. Sorry, I know you can't go into details about the plan, but does anything he do in week one change that plan or kind of change the timeline? Do you reassess after his debut?
No, we're where we're at, and I think that he did a great job at what we were asking him to do.
You mentioned in that Jackson Gibson miscue that the players were sort of nonchalantly tackling and that they left some gray space or gray area. Do you think that's a concern in week one, that they're leaving any gray space? You'd think the energy level and the urgency would be super high.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I haven't talked to Eddie or T. Gipp yet, but I know what those guys are about. I know how much they care, and it's not about gray space for them. It's not about being nonchalant. That's not what this is. It's for them just to, next time they get in that situation, just be more aggressive and make sure that they touch them down, and they'll do that. And once they put that together, they make a play on it, and they're able to make sure that he is down and there is no touchdown. But it's a learning tool for them, and I know that they'll fix it and they'll be better for it.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, man.